Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm sharing a story about trust shattered in the most public way possible, when betrayal unfolds right under your nose at a company gala. This is a tale of quiet observation, cold realization, and a carefully planned moment of exposure that no one there will ever forget. If you've ever suspected something was wrong but didn't know how to prove it, this story will hit close to home. Make sure you stick around until the end. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's dive in. I sensed something was wrong the moment I stepped into the grand ballroom. It wasn't just the familiar hum of polite laughter or the clinking of champagne glasses, nor the artificial smiles plastered on faces that barely tolerated each other. No, it was something deeper, a prickling unease that settled heavy in my chest. And then I saw her, my wife Rachel. She stood across the room, her body angled slightly away from me, chatting animatedly with a group of her co-workers. Her laughter rang out, light and genuine, or so it seemed, but not once in the first 10 minutes did her eyes meet mine. We had arrived together, hand in hand, but the moment the double doors closed behind us, she drifted away like a ghost at a crowded party, as if I were no more than a name on the guest list. Tonight was the annual gala for our company, held at the elegant Seabreeze Hotel by the waterfront. It was the kind of place where crystal chandeliers hung low enough to nearly touch, casting warm golden light over the polished marble floors that echoed with every step. Rachel and I worked in different departments, but over the years we'd been to enough of these events to know the unwritten dance. Arrive together, mingle briefly, separate to entertain our own circles, then reunite before the night ended. But this time, Rachel was doing everything in her power to avoid me. Our assigned tables were just a few seats apart, close enough for me to watch her without raising suspicion. And yet, she positioned herself with her back turned whenever she could, stealing occasional glances in my direction only to quickly look away with a laugh. There was something flickering in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't jealousy or guilt that squeezed my chest. It was pure instinct. I knew her well enough to recognize that look. It was the look of someone hiding a secret. I forced myself to join the conversation at my table, nodding and smiling through the usual talk about quarterly earnings and upcoming projects. But my attention was fractured, constantly pulled back to her. At 8 p.m., she excused herself to take a phone call and didn't return for nearly 20 minutes. When she finally came back, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with that restless spark, like someone who had just received exhilarating news or done something reckless. I reminded myself not to cause a scene. Over the years, I'd learned public confrontations rarely end well for the one who starts them. So I stayed calm, steadying my hands and voice even as my gut twisted tighter. Then Luis appeared beside my table. Luis, the waiter who'd worked these events for years, practically part of the furniture. He leaned in as if to offer a refill but spoke low enough for only me to hear. She just went up to the 18th floor. Not alone. My heart slammed hard against my ribs. Luis's eyes spoke volumes. Rachel and one of her co-workers, a man I'd seen her leaning in toward all night, were heading upstairs together. I nodded once, masking the storm inside with a neutral smile. Thanks. As Luis moved away, I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady, my breath even. I opened the cloud backup app we shared. Most couples used it for vacation photos or grocery lists, but I had always used it to quietly back up both our phones automatically. Rachel had never disabled it, probably forgot it even existed. I selected her device and tapped on the live camera feed. The screen grained for a moment, then sharpened to reveal the interior of a hotel suite. Rachel stood near the bed, her back to the camera. The man was with her, jacket discarded, tie loosened. They talked, smiled, their bodies edging closer like two people who believe they're completely alone. My stomach didn't churn. It hardened. The proof was there. No denials, no misunderstandings. I watched just long enough to confirm this was no innocent conversation. Then I locked the phone and slipped it back into my pocket. I didn't storm upstairs, didn't text her. Didn't even glance her way when she returned to the ballroom. Because in that moment, I already knew my next move. When I acted, the entire room would see who she really was. I smiled quietly to myself, waiting for the perfect moment she'd never anticipate. Luis returned as the salads were cleared, topping off glasses with casual efficiency. He didn't meet my eyes, but when he set a fresh drink before me, his fingers tapped a familiar rhythm on the table, a silent code from years of playing cards together. 3 short, then a long one. Ready when you are. I nodded almost imperceptibly. The plan was already taking shape in my mind. There was no way I was letting this slide quietly. No way I'd let her spin a story to friends, colleagues, and company leadership that erased what I knew. If she wanted to erase me from the night, I'd make sure she was unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. The ballroom buzzed with noise. Soft jazz from the trio near the stage, murmured conversations, glasses clinking, bursts of polite laughter. Nobody noticed me pull out my phone again and reopen the live feed. This time, the video showed them sitting side by side on the bed, leaning close like teenagers sneaking secrets. A half-empty bottle of champagne rested on the nightstand. Rachel was barefoot, shoes kicked off in the corner, her hair tousled from the night's events. The man whispered something that made her laugh, and she reached out to touch his arm. My pulse didn't spike. The trick was to stop thinking of this as my life unraveling and start treating it like a scene I was directing. I wasn't the betrayed husband. I was the man in control. I texted Luis. Dessert course. His reply was instant. Done. Dessert was the gala's final scripted moment before the night dissolved into dancing and drinking. Management always dimmed the lights for the slideshow, usually a sappy montage of company memories set to overly sentimental music. The giant screen filled the entire back wall behind the stage, with every eye focused on it. Perfect. For the next half hour, I moved through the crowd like nothing was wrong. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear, clinked glasses with people whose names I barely remembered, even complimented the VP's tie. I spotted Rachel once across the room, head down, texting. No sign she suspected anything. As plates were cleared, the MC took the microphone announcing the slideshow and the lights dimmed. My phone buzzed with a single word from Luis. Ready. The jazz trio faded out, and the room fell silent. The first slide flickered onto the screen, an exterior shot of our company headquarters. I slipped out my phone, opened the live feed, and with a discreet tap, sent the video to the projector's Bluetooth input. Luis had plugged into the system earlier, unnoticed. The image on the screen flickered, then instead of the next photo, live video from Rachel's phone filled the entire wall. The resolution was crisp. The faint sound filtered through the room. There she was, lying back against pillows, legs tucked beneath her, sipping champagne while the man leaned close, his hand resting on her knee. First, no one reacted. Then the murmurs started, soft confusion turning quickly to stunned whispers. A woman gasped, clutching her pearls. Phones were raised, glowing in the dark as people recorded the scene unfolding live before them. I stared at the screen, face unreadable. The camera angle shifted as Rachel reached for something on the nightstand, revealing their faces in clear view. No one could mistake who she was or what she was doing. The atmosphere shifted. Half the crowd was stunned. The other half leaned forward, riveted by the real-life drama. I didn't look for her in the room. I knew she wasn't back yet. She would return, expecting to slip in unnoticed. Instead, she would walk into a wall of eyes that had already seen everything. The man on screen whispered something, and Rachel laughed, a sound that echoed faintly through the speakers. The same laugh she used to share with me years ago before I was reduced to a fixture in her life, not its center. My stomach twisted, but I kept calm. Luis was nearby, watching the crowd with a faint, satisfied smile. The MC froze, unsure whether to cut the feed. The VP sat rigid in his seat. Nobody knew what to do. But I did. I'd let it play as long as possible. Every second was another nail in the coffin of her carefully curated image. I leaned back, letting the glow from the screen wash over my face. The night was far from over. The tension in the room thickened, silent whispers filling the spaces between stunned gasps. People craned their necks, searching for Rachel. And then the double doors at the far end swung open. She walked in, smiling, tucking her phone into her clutch, probably expecting to grab dessert and pretend she'd never left. She only made it a few steps before the room fell deathly silent. Her smile faltered. Her eyes darted toward the massive screen. Recognition hit her like a blow. Her face drained of color in an instant. The crowd held its breath. The live feed continued. She was on screen in that suite and standing here in the ballroom at the same time. Her gaze snapped to me. I didn't look away. The whispers grew into a wave. Cameras flashed, phones recorded from every angle. The man from the video wasn't with her. His face was etched into everyone's mind. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came. The MC finally cleared his throat, muttering about technical difficulties. But no one listened. Luis lingered by the AV table, pretending to fumble with cables, buying a few more precious seconds. She took a hesitant step toward me, then stopped, caught between pleading, explaining, or fleeing. I gave her nothing. No words, no gestures, just cold silence. Because the cruelest punishment wasn't yelling. It was letting her drown in the quiet judgment of everyone present. A sharp, bitter laugh broke out from someone in the crowd. She had fallen hard. The video cut, replaced by the company logo. But the damage was irreversible. No one returned to casual conversation. Rachel stood frozen while a few quietly slipped past her, whispering. She looked at me once more. This time panic flickered in her eyes. I could have stood up, made a scene, demanded answers in front of everyone. But that wasn't the point. Point was she knew. They knew. There was no taking it back. The silence held more power than any shouted confrontation ever could. Luis caught my eye, nodding once, job done. I straightened my jacket and rose, walking away steadily. Not rushed, not dramatic. Just enough for the room to notice. The clink of silverware and murmur of voices resumed, but quieter now, charged with an electric buzz of gossip that would echo through the company by morning. She didn't follow. I didn't look back. The doors closed behind me, muffling the ballroom's noise. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped into the hotel corridor. My hands were steady, my breathing calm. I had done what I came to do. Now the story would tell itself, replayed again and again until she couldn't walk into a meeting, a dinner, or another gala without remembering the night she walked into her own public undoing. I didn't leave immediately. Instead, I wandered the quiet hotel halls past the lounge, where a few late guests sipped drinks by the fire. My phone buzzed. I knew who it was without looking. I let it ring out. Another buzz. A text. Where are you? No apologies. No explanations. Just that. I slipped the phone away, uninterested in giving her an opening to rewrite the story. My power lay in her uncertainty. I reached the elevator but pressed 18 instead of the lobby. If she thought I'd left, all the better. The elevator hummed upward, gold trim catching the dim light. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty. Soft carpet muffled my footsteps as I approached the room Luis had mentioned. I didn't knock. I just stood there, taking in the closed door. Thinking about the two people inside, so sure of themselves an hour ago. I pictured him, maybe scrolling his phone, maybe pacing nervously. He'd be a problem for her now, not for me. I turned and returned to the elevator. My point made without a word exchanged. Back in the lobby, I spotted a group of gala guests outside for fresh air. Their faces were lit by the glow of their phones replaying the footage. One glanced up, recognized me, and nodded briefly, respectfully. Moments like this don't just expose someone to their spouse. They expose them to everyone around them. By morning, it wouldn't be just co-workers who knew. Friends, family, clients. The ripple would spread fast. Outside, the night air was cool and calm. City lights shimmered over the water. Music from the ballroom thumped faintly behind me. I pulled out my phone one last time. Opened her messages. 5 texts, all frantic variations of the same plea. We need to talk. Please answer. It's not what you think. That last one made me chuckle quietly. She knew exactly what I thought. More importantly, she knew what everyone else thought now, too. I typed a short reply. Enjoy the rest of your evening. No threats. No accusations. No begging. Just a sentence designed to gnaw at her because it left no target to fight. I pocketed the phone and started toward the parking garage. Each step slow, deliberate. Halfway there, Luis slipped out a side door, work finished. He grinned at me. Worth it. I met his gaze, nodded. More than you know. He chuckled, patted my shoulder, then disappeared into the night. The chaos still raged inside. But out here I was untouchable. My role was done. The whispers, sideways glances, fallout, they would all play out without me lifting another finger. I reached my car, leaned against it for a moment, glancing back at the glowing hotel windows. Somewhere inside, she was scrambling, weaving stories to save herself. But no matter what she said, the image of her on that giant screen was etched in everyone's mind. A scene retold over drinks for months. And in every telling, she'd be the one on display. I climbed into the car but didn't start it. I sat in the quiet, letting the satisfaction settle. I hadn't yelled, hadn't thrown a drink, hadn't made a speech. I'd let her hang herself with her own actions. And that was something she could never undo. My phone buzzed again, from an unknown number. I ignored it. Whoever it was could wait. I was done reacting. I was in control. The silence between us was louder than any words. Finally I turned the key. The engine's low rumble was the perfect punctuation to the night. I pulled out of the lot without looking back. The hotel faded behind me, driving toward a future where she was nothing more than a cautionary tale. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with words, but with patience and quiet strength. If this story resonated with you, let me know what you think below. And if you've ever faced betrayal, how did you handle it? Remember to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this. Until next time, stay strong and stay vigilant.